What if the reason you feel so completely unseen in your life is not because you aren't sharing enough, but because you're sharing it in the wrong direction? What if the reason you can't connect is because you've mastered the art of posting your rawest thoughts to hundreds of strangers online, or typing out massive text paragraphs to a friend, but you cannot look your own partner in the eye and tell them the truth? We live in a world where being seen has become easier than ever. You can write a raw post, you can record a video with tears in your eyes, you can send a long message, you can vent, but being seen is not the same as being known. You can share a quote that says exactly what you're feeling without actually saying it to the person who needs to hear it. And that is a sentence I want you to really sit with for a moment. All of that can look like vulnerability. But looking vulnerable is not the same as being vulnerable. Because real vulnerability is not the performance of pain. Real vulnerability is truth without a weapon. It is saying, this hurt me without attacking. It is saying, I miss you without demanding. It is saying, I need help without performing helpless. It is admitting you were wrong without using a single defense mechanism to protect your ego. It is saying this is not okay for me without punishing the other person for not knowing sooner. That kind of vulnerability is harder because it is not edited, it is not polished, it is not written after you already know how people will respond. It happens in real time, in your body, in front of another person, where you cannot fully control what happens next. And this is where many of us get uncomfortable. We can share something deep online, but then go home and pretend everything is fine. We can text a friend a whole paragraph about how hurt we are. But when the person who hurts us asks, are you okay? We say, yes, I'm fine. We can cry in the car before walking into the house, wipe our face, fix our voice, open the door, and become the version of ourselves that does not need anything. And then we wonder why we feel lonely in relationships. We wonder why people do not really know us. We wonder why we feel unseen even when we are visible everywhere. And this is the vulnerability performance. It's not always fake. That is important. I do not believe people are always pretending when when they share something emotional. Many times the pain is real, the tears are real, the need to be heard is real, the loneliness is real. But even real pain can become a hiding place when we share it everywhere except where it actually needs to be spoken. A raw post can still be armor if it helps you avoid the real conversation. A long message can still be armor if it keeps you from hearing the other person breathe, pause, misunderstand, react, soften, or tell you their truth back. Venting can still be armor if it gives you relief but never leads you toward honesty. Screens give us control. That is why they feel safer. You can choose the angle. You can choose the words. You can delete and rewrite. You can sound wiser than you feel. You can wait until you are calm enough to look composed. You can make pain look beautiful. You can make confusion sound like a lesson. You can pose the healed version of the wound before you have had the courage to speak from the living truth of it. But real intimacy takes away the editing button. You have to be there. You have to look someone in the eye. You have to feel your own nervous system. You have to risk being misunderstood. You have to risk the person not responding the way you hoped. You have to risk hearing that they are hurt too. You have to risk saying something imperfectly. You have to risk the silence after the sentence. And for many people, that silence is terrifying because in that silence, you are not performing anymore. You are not managing the image. You are not choosing the camera angle. You are not controlling the comments. You're just there as you are with the truth between you. That is vulnerability, not the dramatic kind, the real kind. I learned very early that not speaking can cost you something. When I was younger, I had a friend who was always late. And not late like 5 or 10 minutes, late like an hour late, an hour and a half, almost 2 hours. And this went on for years. And I was not okay with it. I felt it. I showed it in small ways. I made comments I hoped she would understand. But I did not really say it in a way that could not be missed. Until one day she came to my house 1 hour and 45 minutes later than we agreed. I opened the door and said, "You are 1 hour and 45 minutes late. And I'm not okay with it. And I do not have time anymore. The time I scheduled to spend with you is over." And she never did that again. Now, I could say that softer. I could say it sooner. I could have had the conversation before it reached the point where the truth came out so firmly. But that is exactly the point. When we do not speak the truth early, the truth often comes out later with more pressure behind it. Avoided honesty does not disappear. It gathers weight. And then one day it comes out sharper than we want it to be. And that is not only about being late. This is about every small moment where something hurts, something feels off, something crosses the line, something is not okay. And we say nothing because we want to be easy. We want to be kind. We do not want to make a big deal. We do not want to seem dramatic. We do not want to be rejected. We do not want to create conflict. So we hold it and hold it and hold it. And then we call it peace. But it's not peace, it's pressure without a voice. I also remember this from school. I was in a class where I did not get along with my classmates, and I was bullied for quite some time. I did not speak about it, not even to my mom. I kept it in. I tried to carry it. I tried to survive it. And then it became so bad that I didn't want to go to school anymore. I was done. I opened up to my mom only when I have reached the point where I could not hold it anymore. And that kind of silence teaches you something. It teaches you that hidden pain does not become smaller because nobody sees it. It teaches you that being strong in silence can become another way of abandoning yourself. It teaches you that there are moments where your truth needs a voice, not because you want to attack more, not because but because you belong to yourself. And this is where vulnerability becomes self-respect, because real vulnerability is not spilling everything to everyone. It's not exposing the most private part of your life to strangers. It is not. It is not sharing intimate details that belong between two partners. It's not putting your children's private world online. It's not making content out of something that deserves protection. Real vulnerability also has boundaries. There are things I will not share publicly. There are things that belong inside a relationship. There are things that belong to my children. There are things that are too intimate, too private, too sacred to become a public lesson. That does not make me less honest. It makes me responsible. And I think this distinction matters so much today because we have started confusing exposure with honesty. But not everything exposed is honest, and not everything private is hidden. There is a kind of silence that is avoidance, and there is a kind of silence that is wisdom. When I'm hurt or scared, I often go quiet first, not because I want to punish the other person, not because I want to disappear, not because I want to pretend everything is fine. I go quiet because I need to meet myself first. I need to ask, where is this hurt coming from? Is it my ego? Is it an old wound? Is it something true that needs to be spoken? Am I reacting to what happened or to what I am afraid it means? And that pause is the most important. When we speak from the middle of the storm, we often throw the storm at the other person and call it honesty. That is not vulnerability, that is discharge. There is a difference between sharing your truth and throwing your pain. There is a difference between saying this hurt me and making the other person responsible for your whole emotional world. There is a difference between opening your heart and using your hurt as a weapon. So, yes, pause. Take 3 deep breaths before entering the conversation. Go inward. Let the first wave move through. Ask yourself what is really going on. But do not use the pause as a way to never speak. Pause is healthy when it brings you closer to the truth. Avoidance is when it keeps you away from the conversation, and that is the line. And I have crossed both sides of that line in my life. I remember being in a relationship where something important was discussed. The person I was with had taken on extra work, and at first it was supposed to be only for a couple of months. But those months passed and the work continued. It meant we did not see each other much or nothing. It had an effect on the relationship. And then one day we were sitting on the couch, close to each other, talking. It should have been a safe moment. And he told me he would continue doing that work. And he did not know for how long. And I knew I was not okay with it. My body knew it immediately. But what came out of was something like, okay, fine. And I was not fine. This is such a human moment, you know? How many times do we say it's fine when the body is already telling the truth? How many times do we smile when something inside us closes? How many times do we choose peace in the room and create war inside ourselves? How many times do we let the sentence die in our throat because the real one feels too risky? The vulnerable sentence in that moment would not have been an attack. It would have not been you are selfish or you do not care or you are ruining this. The vulnerable sentence would have been something like, I need to be honest, I'm not okay with it. I understand this matters to you, but I also need to tell you that this is affecting me and the relationship. And I do not want to pretend I'm fine when I'm not. And that is very different. Truth without a weapon. And that is much harder than posting a quote later about being disappointed because the quote cannot look back at you. The quote cannot disagree. The quote cannot tell you its side. The quote cannot ask something of you. The quote cannot reveal that your truth is not the only truth in the room. And this is why face-to-face vulnerability is so uncomfortable. It does not only reveal you, it also asks you to stay present with what is revealed in the other person. And I think that is where real intimacy begins. Not in the perfect sentence, not in the dramatic confession, not in the long explanation, but in the 5-second offline pause. The moment where your partner asks, "Are you okay?" And you automatically answer, "Yes, I'm fine." But you pause. You feel the armor, you feel the old habit, you feel the fear of being too much, too needy, too sensitive, too difficult. And instead of performing fine, you tell the truth. "No, I'm not okay. And I do not know how to say this perfectly, but I want to try." That is intimacy. It is small, it's not cinematic. No one is clapping, no one is liking it. No one is commenting, "So brave." But your life changes in those moments because those are the moments where you stop being only visible and allow yourself to be known. This is also why I have concerns about how much connection now happens through phones, especially with younger people. I say this with absolute clarity because I understand exactly why it happens. It is easier, it feels safer. You can start a relationship through messages. You can end it through messages. You can disappear without having to feel the other person's reaction. You can ghost instead of saying, "I do not want to continue." But we are losing something when we lose the ability to have hard conversations in real life. We have more ways to communicate than ever, and many people have less capacity for real conversation. And this is not only about young people, adults do it too. We just do it in more polished way. We send the long message because we do not want to hear the pause. We vent to a friend because we do not want to risk the direct conversation. We post something indirect because we want the person to understand without us having to say it. We say "I'm fine" because we do not want to feel the shaking in our own voice. We tell ourselves we are protecting the peace. But peace built on avoidance is not peace. It's distance with good manners. And this kind of distance becomes very lonely because then you can be in a relationship and still feel alone. You can be surrounded by people and still feel unseen. You can be praised for your honesty online and still not be honest in the room where it matters most. That is the part we need to look at, not with shame, with honesty, awareness. Because there is nothing wrong with sharing online when it comes from the right place. I share personal stories. I speak about things I have learned, things I have healed, mistakes I have made. patterns I have seen in myself. But I do not want to share from the fresh wound. I want to share from the lesson. That does not mean the story has to be perfect or completely finished, but it means I have gone inwards first. I have met myself. I have taken responsibility for my part. I have allowed the strongest emotional charge to settle. I have asked myself, is this useful? Is this valuable? Is this going to help someone? Am I contributing something here? And if the answer is yes, I can share. If the answer is I just want attention, I want people to rescue me. I want someone agree that I am right. I want to avoid the person this actually belongs with. Then I need to pause. Because sharing from clarity can serve. Sharing from a fresh wound seeking attention can become a hiding place. This does not mean you have to become perfect before you speak. It means you become honest about why you are speaking. Before you post, before you send a long message, before you ghost, before you say I'm fine again, ask yourself, am I sharing this to connect or to avoid being met? Is this coming from clarity or from wound that still wants an audience? Have I spoken to the person who actually needs to hear this? Am I looking for witnesses because I am afraid of intimacy? What is the truthful sentence I am afraid to say out loud? Will this contribute something, or am I asking strangers to hold what I am not willing to face? And these questions are not here to shame you. They are here to bring you back to yourself. Because the goal is not to stop sharing. The goal is to stop using sharing as a hiding place. The goal is not to become less visible. The goal is to become more honest where it actually matters. And that is where self-trust grows. Self-trust does not grow only when you are calm, confident, and everything is easy. Self-trust grows when you are hurt and you do not abandon yourself. When you are scared and you do not hand your truth away. When you are disappointed and you do not turn your pain into a weapon. When you are afraid of the conversation and you still choose to enter it with respect. That is emotional maturity. Not never being hurt, not never crying, not never needing support, not never sharing online. Emotional maturity is knowing the difference between expression and avoidance, between connection and performance, between truth and attack, between privacy and hiding, between taking space and disappearing, between sharing lesson and broadcasting a wound. And yes, this is hard. It is hard to say I'm hurt without making the other person the enemy. It is hard to say I need help without feeling weak. It is hard to say I was wrong without protecting your pride. It is hard to say this is not okay for me before resentment turns you cold. And it is hard to stay in the room when your body wants to run. But this is the work of becoming the kind of person you can respect. Not the kind of person who always looks strong, not the kind of person who always looks healed, not the kind of person who always has the perfect caption for the pain, the kind of person who can meet truth with clean hands. No weapon, no performance, no hiding, just honesty. And honesty is not always loud. It can be one sentence. I'm not fine. I need to talk about this. I do not know how to say this perfectly. I'm scared you will misunderstand me. I need help. I was hurt. I was wrong. I do not want to continue pretending this is okay. Those sentences can change a relationship more than 1,000 people watching your pain. Because being watched is not the same as being known. And deep down, most of us do not only want to be seen, we want to be known. We want someone to see behind the performance, behind the capacity, behind the polished words, behind the I'm fine, behind a strong woman who handles everything, behind the version of us that makes pain useful before she lets herself feel it. We want to be met. But to be met, we have to show up where meeting is possible. Not only in the post, not only in the message, not only in the story, not only in the car alone, but in the real conversation, in the kitchen, on the couch, at the table, on the walk. In the moment where your voice shakes and you will stay. That is where intimacy begins. So this week, do not ask only, what do I need to share? Ask, where do I need to be honest? Do not only ask, who will understand this post? Ask, who needs to hear my truth directly? Do not ask only, how can I express my pain? Ask, how can I express this without making it a weapon? Do not ask only, how can I be seen? Ask, am I willing to be known? And if this touches the part of you that still feels afraid of being judged, misunderstood, or too much, I have a simple course on releasing the fear of judgment and shame linked below this episode. And you can also start with my free workbook, The Real Reason You Feel Not Enough. Both are there to help you come back to yourself gently, without forcing, without fixing, without performing. Because you do not need to turn your pain into a performance for it to matter. You do not need the whole world to witness your tears for them to be real. You do not need to make every wound public to prove you are honest. The real invitation is quieter. Put down the edit button. Put down the armor. Put down the weapon. Take a breath. Look at the person in front of you, or look honestly at yourself first, and say the truthful sentence, the one you keep avoiding, the one that does not attack, the one that does not perform, the one that lets you come home. Welcome home.